All right, we're going to talk about all things Mortal Kombat. We're going to talk about the history of the video game series. We're going to talk about the movie from 1995. Love it or hate it, it exists. It's a part of our geek culture. We're going to talk about the new movie that just recently debuted on HBO Max. And if you're looking for an animated romp, I have a recommendation. So stay tuned and check it out. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Just recently got done watching the latest installment of the Mortal Kombat live action film series. This is kind of a reboot. They're trying to ignore some of the stuff that happened in 95. So I figured I'd just shed some light on the series as a whole, kind of talk about the previous iteration that came out in 95, this current movie, and maybe an additional recommendation if you're a fan of the Mortal Kombat series. So let's get into it, if you will. Let's check this out. So let's talk about the series as a whole. I mean, Mortal Kombat debuted in 1992. It was originally created by its two co-creators, Ed Boon and John Tobias. If those names ring any bells, they took both their last names and reversed them and created a secret character in the game called Noob Saibot. In fact, Ed Boon himself would go on to voice Scorpion in the game, and everybody loved Scorpion so much in the original game that Ed Boon voiced him in the 1995 film. There's only a couple lines, so if you run to the bathroom and come back, you might miss it. It's the whole, get over here, get back here, get down here. That was all Ed Boon's little additions to the 1995 film. But there was originally a day and a time where this game came to arcades first and foremost. As crazy as that can believe, it gained notoriety in arcades and then eventually was ported over to home consoles. Your Sega Genesis, your Super Nintendo, they even made a Game Boy iteration. If they could make a version of Mortal Kombat, they found a way to do it. In fact, here's a photo here of some people enjoying an old arcade box of Mortal Kombat itself. So it made the quarters, so they wanted it to keep the engine going, transition it over to the home market. A lot of parents were buying it, but I think there was a lot of sticker shock because this was not Street Fighter. That was kind of their appeal, is that they were making a violent game where you had fatalities, where other than just beating the guy to a pulp, you could be Scorpion and scorch him. You could be Sub-Zero. You could freeze him into a giant block of ice and then hit him. You could zap their souls. You could do everything else. So this game was wildfire when it came out to the home market, and a movie studio got a hold of it. They wanted to make a movie out of it, and they got Paul Anderson to do it. This guy just had recently come off a couple of European films, and he would later make video games his bread and butter. He's now known for it. The original Mortal Kombat movie came out in 1995, but he would continue on the video game train and do video game series like a little lesser known series from Capcom called Resident Evil. And he would make Mila Jovovich pretty much as Alice, the next big action star of that series. She would helmet till pretty much the end of time. I don't think that Resident Evil has stopped in any way, shape, or form as a movie for that matter. So the 95 film was a little bit weird, and it focused on Liu Kang and him running away from his responsibilities as being a monk at the Temple of Light. His younger brother tried to take on Shang Tsung. Didn't end so well for his younger brother. Good old Shang Tsung took his brother's soul. Liu saw it in a vision and decided that he needed to do something. He just felt something was awry, and he was met by Sonya Blade. He was met by Johnny Cage, and they all hopped on a boat together to go to this mystical island that was owned by Shang Tsung, where the Mortal Kombat tournament was being held. It's a very convoluted storyline for having all these protagonists collide, hop on a boat, go to an island, and kind of do an Enter the Dragon tournament, if you will, to see who is going to determine the fate of the Earth Realm and the Out Realm, which is kind of like their version of this evil dark dimension that's trying to take over and is led by an emperor by the name of Shao Kahn. And one of his disciples is Shang Tsung, one of his lieutenants that's trying to kind of tilt the balance of the Mortal Kombat tournament in their favor so they can ultimately get so many wins in a row that they can claim Earthrealm with any opposition from Lord Raiden, who is in this movie played by Christopher Lambert. If that name is familiar, he has made a career of taking over different genres, different people's nationalities, if you will. He was in another series called Highlander. So a French actor played a Scottish Highlander that's an immortal that was befriended by a Spanish-Scottish actor, a little guy named Sean Connery, and they went on a romp called in Highlander. But this time he is deciding to play a Lord of Lightning and Thunder in this movie as Lord Raiden. Robin Shaw played Liu Kang. Just kind of have a little bit of a career. He was in also Beverly Hills Ninja with Chris Farley, but he would also be one of the few people that would survive the reskinning of characters going into Mortal Kombat Annihilation, which pretty much that movie in 1997 blacklisted the series. Nobody wanted to touch this film series for almost decades. It stayed in developmental hell because of Mortal Kombat Annihilation. That movie was bad, just got trashed in reviews. The movie itself is really hard to watch, and it cost a lot to make. So it just failed on every way, shape, form possible. Let's see. My personal favorite in the 95 movie is Johnny Cage, played by Lyndon Ashby. He's the comedic relief. You're seeing a lot of crazy stuff in this movie, and he's kind of playing a washed out action star. That's the Johnny Cage character, but he had his own little spin to it. It reminded me a lot of a very early kind of proto Ryan Reynolds, if you will, because his delivery was really good in the movie. Then you had Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa. He played Shang Tsung in the movie, and he owned this role. In fact, he'd go on in the rest of the series, and even currently right now with the 11th iteration of Mortal Kombat, he is voicing Shang Tsung. He would become kind of synonymous with that character. He with the Mortal Kombat film and the games, and he has embraced the role of being Shang Tsung. So we also had Bridget Wilson play Sonya Blade. We had Talisa Soto play Katana. And then you had Trevor Goddard as Kano. Honestly, he was kind of a little bit of a relief. Didn't have too many lines. He was kind of like a throwaway villain that easily is defeated in the course of the movie. I mentioned Ed Boon earlier as well. Frank Welker voices Shao Kahn at the end. If Frank Welker rings any bells, it's because he's practically voiced your entire childhood, from anywhere between doing multiple characters on Hanna-Barbera properties. He is the voice of Megatron in the Transformers series. He's synonymous with that and has lent his voice talents to being Megatron for decades. So that's just kind of my rough little synopsis. I still enjoy the 1995 Mortal Kombat film. I know a lot of critics love to bash it. I know that the special effects aren't up to par, but I was one of those few fans when geek culture was very much put on the sidelines in the 90s, and it wasn't like how it was now. You got to appreciate when you had anything, and I was just happy to see Mortal Kombat on the screen. I know it was PG-13, so they weren't pushing a hard R rating in this 95 iteration, but I enjoyed it for what it was. It's kind of comfort food in that way. There's certain movies that are B films or just really bad, but you enjoy them because they're funny and they are almost a time capsule when you were growing up as a kid. So this is comfort B schlock for me that I enjoy because I love the jokes. I love the whole apparatus that Goro's in. He's not CGI. They actually made a harness and built it for a guy. And, Kevin Michael Richardson voices Goro as well. He has voiced so many characters in the 90s, and currently he's voiced Gantu. He's voiced the Mauler twins on Invincible, so he was voicing Goro in this as well. It's just a period of the 90s. I would say if there's anything synonymous with the 1990s is this, and I was just happy to go see it. I saw it with my brother when I was, barely in my preteens, and I enjoyed it. So now we get the inverse of that. Obviously, due to where the world is with COVID and the beer bug itself, this movie did not really get a wide theatrical release like they were planning on it. So it was ported over to HBO Max, and it just recently dropped. If it's crazy to believe, they made this movie for pretty much, budget wise, $95 million. So far, it's only had $20 million at the box office, but we really don't know how HBO Max breaks down and how they look at viewership and then dollars and all this other stuff. And I'm pretty sure once this drops on Blu-ray for an actual physical item that you can have, and they have different iterations of collector's pieces, it'll make up its money tenfold. So it was a very cheap movie to do in this day and age in Hollywood. And mostly it was filmed in Australia, which doubles for the Temple of Light and also doubles for Outrealm. So, that's just a little bit there. Let's get into the cast of this movie, because really at the core of this movie, it is based on obviously the Mortal Kombat tournament, but really the family feuds between Sub-Zero's clan, the Quin Lay, and Scorpion's clan, the Shirai Ryu clan. So they introduce a newly created character. They kind of use this guy to pull you into this new updated version of Mortal Kombat. Lewis Tan plays Cole Young, a descendant of Scorpion, who is one of the Earth's champions in Outrealm. You have Sonya Blade as a newer character, but really the guy who shines in this movie, in my mind, is really Kano. Joshua Lawson has some of the best comedic lines. I don't know if I almost have to assume most of his lines were improvised in this, just because of the quick delivery and quick wit that he has. This guy really needs to be moved up in the world. It was called Mortal Kombat, but it was Mortal Kano for me. Just some of the throwaway lines, like saying that he hasn't developed his powers, they kind of give you a better understanding in the movie that anybody with the dragon mark is chosen, and they have to tap into their chi almost, and everybody's powers manifest differently. Kano, obviously, like the original video game iterations, gets a laser eye. Cole Young kind of gets Colossus skin that can also absorb kinetic energy, and then he can release it, but it looks kind of like an outer armor shell for him. So that was kind of, interesting. We have, Liu Kang is played by Liu Yin. This is a guy who actually played Zack in the rebooted Power Rangers. So he kind of plays like this experienced person that is introducing the other champions to the world of Mortal Kombat, kind of is their drill sergeant, helping them tap into their powers, along with his cousin Kung Lao. So, there's just kind of that little bit, there's some minor training montages, but the fact that I enjoyed the most is they also had some deep cuts character-wise. I mean, they actually put Cabal in the movie. I didn't think Cabal would be a character that would ever really see any screen time whatsoever, but they found a way to bring him in that highlight his powers. He's kind of a speedster that wears a Darth Vader mask and has some bladed weapons. So that was a little bit crazy. You even had Nathan Jones of wrestling fame. He's been kind of like this tough guy. He had a little blink if you miss it career in the early aughts in the WWE, but now he's been kind of known for being these larger than life characters in some of these more obscure films. He was also in Troy. He was in Mad Max Fury Road. And now recently he plays kind of a large character that takes on Jax. But really, I also enjoyed Scorpion in this as well. I thought that it was great. Like, I literally just geeked out anytime I saw him near the end of the film, like, come back. So it opens up, spoilers abound. It opens up with Scorpion dying in the early 16th century of feudal Japan. Obviously, Lewis Tan's character, Cole Young, finds a way to kind of cut the blade that was used to kill his ancestor, and Scorpion comes back, and then they fight together to fight Sub-Zero at the end of the movie, which is great. So throughout the course of the movie, it's all leading up in preparation for the tournament, and Shang Tsung is trying to kind of kill the champions before the tournament can begin. So we really don't see the Mortal Kombat tournament in this first film. It very much sets up the rest of the film series. You can definitely tell. I think the actor who played Sub-Zero in the film is signed on potentially, if it's opted, for multiple films, that he has signed a 4-picture deal to return as Bi Hong. That's Joe Talzum. So he kind of openly just recently said, like, yeah, if it gets opted and they decide to pick up the rest of this series, I signed a kind of an open-ended contract that I'll come back for 3 additional films. So I'm hoping that it does. I know that it's getting plastered on the reviews, but this movie has to be judged by the series as a whole and the ones that came before it. I think that this is a great iteration of Mortal Kombat. It has a little bit of everything for everybody. It does push the envelope with the gore. So if you're faint of heart, this is not the movie for you. It's not like the 95 romp where it's PG-13. This is a hard R. They do have multiple fatalities from the video games in the movie itself. So just a disclaimer to throw out there, you do see somebody literally get sliced in half. You see Liu Kang summon his fire dragon and eat a guy right then and there in the middle of combat. Sonya Blade kind of develops her powers and literally shoots a hole through Melina. So you see this giant kind of center mass hole and where the spine is in the middle. And you even see Shang Tsung absorb the soul of Kung Lao in this movie. So it's not for the faint of heart. But if you're somebody that enjoys the video game, this is definitely up your alley. And I cannot highly, sing its praises enough and say that you need to check it out on HBO Max. Now, if you're looking something akin to this that pays attention and is a little bit more fan service to the Mortal Kombat lore, that's also on HBO Max right now, is Mortal Kombat Legends Scorpion's Revenge. This came out last year, and it really follows the true lore of Scorpion from start to finish. You find out a couple more Outworld characters. The Mortal Kombat tournament actually takes place. I like Johnny Cage in this. There's some great one-liners in this. And, the controversy with Johnny Cage with the 2021 film, I know a lot of people were really giving it a hard time because of Louis Tan playing Cole Young, and they thought that they were, replacing Johnny Cage in the movie. There is a throwaway scene at the end of the movie where Raiden is now going to challenge the Earth champions to collect more champions in preparation for the Mortal Kombat tournament. Cole Young's kind of gathering his things at kind of this MMA fight center. And you see a poster. He mentions he's going to Hollywood. What are you doing in Hollywood? And as he's walking away and the movie's fading out to black, you see a poster of Johnny Cage. So I'm hoping we see Johnny Cage. I hope we see the next iteration of Sub-Zero in the movie. They leave it open if they want to bring Scorpion back or not. So, it's kind of like this ghost moment that he fought with his descendant to avenge his family's honor. And so he's able to move on. So if Scorpion comes back, it's great. If he doesn't, they can continue the series moving forward. So that, in a nutshell, is just some thoughts and comments I wanted to provide about the new Mortal Kombat movie. In closing, are you a fan of the series? Who was your favorite Mortal Kombat character? Were you always mad that somebody would pick Johnny Cage just to do the splits and hit you in the nuts because it was the cheapest move in Mortal Kombat 1? Lord knows I was. Half the time we had unofficial rules that you couldn't play Johnny Cage, and if you did, you couldn't do the nut shot. So there's that. And what are you looking forward to? Which characters have you enjoyed? Obviously, Mortal Kombat's been going on since 1992. Which characters do you want to see in the next iterations of the films if they decide to continue them? Let's keep the discussion going in the comments below. If you're a Mortal Kombat fan, please give me a like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video. I do these videos as a labor of love and as fun because I want our voices to be heard in geek culture. In this day and age, it seems everybody wants to silence you if you have an opinion, but let's let our geek flags fly and have some fun. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll catch you on the next video. Have a good one.